Okay, number 11, 1-1. What is this lesson about? Some highlights about this.
Yeah, so this is about consumerism, and you know, this is one that hits home too, because we are immersed in a consumer culture. We have billions and billions of dollars every day that are saturating us in the idea that we find happiness, that we find satisfaction in this product or that product or this, this adventure or whatever. It's all about, finding happiness in things rather than the true source of our happiness, which is in our relationship with the Father and in His Son. And that's where true happiness lies. But what we see then is this continual pursuit of happiness. It's interesting that the founding fathers, they talked about the pursuit of happiness rather than the attainment of happiness. Because I think even back then you can realize that if you're pursuing happiness, it's this ever fleeting. You attain it. You get the cell phone and you think, oh, this is great. I've been looking at this. I've been, poring over the ads for this, and I finally got the cell phone. And you're happy with it for a little while, and then all of a sudden that happiness fades, and you have billions of dollars telling you you're not happy with this cell phone anymore because the next one's come out. And so it's this endless pursuit of happiness with only these fleeting moments of actually attaining any sense of satisfaction. And that's essentially what consumerism is. And we have we live in this world where we end up having not satisfaction, but an endless hunger. We keep thinking that satisfaction is found in this next thing, if I can just get there. It's this continual mirage. And we end up being possessed by our possessions. And a close relative to that is to be obsessed by our obsessions. That we find ourselves, pouring our lives into all these different obsessions. We take these healthy activities like sports or fitness or music or horses or cars or things, these things that God gives us as good, healthy, pastimes or entertainments. But then we turn them into these all-consuming obsessions. And so we end up being possessed by our possessions and obsessed by our obsessions. And that essentially is consumerism.
Right, so I should not be up at night like shopping at Amazon.com. I mean, I like watches, and sometimes I just spend nights just watching for the next new watch and things. But okay, so does a person being covetous also plays into me being a consumerism type?
Yeah, absolutely. Person? Where the last lesson, the idol was pleasure itself, that we put pleasure itself as the highest good. In consumerism to Calvary, we're looking at the idol now has become the things, not even necessarily pleasure in the things, it's just the thing themselves. And it's interesting because the key text that we're looking at for this lesson is Luke 12, and where Jesus says, beware of covetousness, for a man's life does not consist of the abundance of the things he possesses. And interestingly, Paul will later on equate covetousness with idolatry, which takes us right back to the kind of the theme of these lessons, that consumeristic, covetous kind of grasping for the things and looking for satisfaction in the thing is the very definition of idolatry. And so this is, I think, a really important lesson to get back to identifying those idols, seeing how they have a hold of us in ways, and learning how to resist that while also being able to speak to it and in the culture. It's interesting, Jesus, right after he gives this warning to beware of covetousness, he gives the parable of the rich fool who built all these barns. He says, I got more stuff, so I'm going to build bigger barns, and I need another storage building so I can add more stuff, and then he dies. And Jesus ends it. It's very sad. He says, while he was rich towards himself. You know, he built up treasures for himself, but he wasn't rich toward God. And I think that takes us to from consumerism to Calvary. What our Lord has taught us and what he calls us to do, the commandment he gives us first and foremost is deny yourself, take up your cross and follow me. And so the call of Jesus as Lord on our life, it cuts right across this consumeristic, this covetous, idolatrous sort of spirit in us that will take almost anything and raise it above God himself. It's a serious lesson.
So the takeaway here is, what again?
Right. Well, I think the takeaway is essentially with consumerism, we become takers, and it's the opposite of what Jesus wants us to become. Is he wants to give us his giving nature.
Okay, good. Good, excellent.